Welcome to Fox 23's Frigid, where we take a deep dive with a keen eye into cold cases across the state of Oklahoma. My name is Kaylie Cotten, and today I'm joined by Chelsea Phelps and Gale Whitson. Hi, guys.
Hi.
Thank you so much for joining me. So today we're discussing the case of Daniel Furr, your son, your brother, correct?
Correct.
A teen boy who disappeared in 1995 out of Ada, Oklahoma. In 1995, Daniel disappeared. He was only 15 years old at the time, correct?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. So on July 11th, a body was found. Investigators believed was Daniel near an abandoned plant in Ada. Is that right?
It was no brick plant.
A brick plant, okay. And the cause of death was deemed a homicide. This year marks 30 years since that body was found, and you're still waiting for answers and justice.
Correct.
So, can you first tell me a little bit about Daniel and who he is?
That's a lot. Daniel was a very mild-mannered young man, sweet, easygoing. About 10 years old is when I kind of started having little issues with him here and there. I had gotten a divorce, and he was very into astronomy, figuring out how things worked.
Mm-hmm.
I worked at a hardware store, and I would bring him home stuff in the junk pile, where he would take it apart, try to figure out how things worked.
Mm-hmm.
He just had a very inquisitive mind, very smart. He kind of had an older spirit about him. Funny, skateboarder.
Yeah. And how old were you at the time?
I was 8.
You were 8. So what do you remember about your brother?
I mean, as an older brother, he picked on us, which is normal. He also took care of us, and I remember him being very outdoorsy. Would like to go hunt crawdads and into Boy Scouts. So it's really neat to see him just interact with nature and also be there for us too.
And how many siblings are there? Is it just you two?
No, there's...
There's 2 more brothers, and then another sister.
Okay. So, Daniel, 2 sisters, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I said another sister.
2 more sisters, so there's 3 sisters and 2 brothers that he had.
Okay. And then how long was Daniel missing before the body was found?
He was only missing for 3 days.
Okay. And did he have a history of running away? Was this abnormal?
Daniel had got involved with a gang in Ada, and he was pretty independent at the age of 14.
Mm-hmm.
Where I usually knew where he was, but then he would take off once in a while, and at one point he took off for a couple of weeks.
Oh,
and,
wow.
But yeah, he had history just kind of doing his own thing.
Yeah. So when the body was found, did you immediately think, yeah, that's definitely Daniel, or did it take a second for you to come to terms that it was Daniel's body?
Well, when we had gotten into an argument the night before he left, and a couple days later I went to go report him as missing, and then later on they called me at work and told me they had found a body. And I had just got out of homicide investigation courses, and at first I felt it was Daniel because he was gone. So.
And what was the extent of the injuries on the body when it was found?
The body was badly decomposed, to the point where it's unrecognizable. They didn't ask me to look at him or identify him or anything like that. They just called me at work and asked me what clothes he was wearing, and I explained the clothes, and they said those were his clothes. But the body was years later, I was able to finally look at a picture of the body.
Mm-hmm.
I got him to let me look at one, and it was unrecognizable.
So because of the decomposition, was there ever realistically a cause of death confirmed besides it being a homicide?
They finally listed it as trauma to the body.
Okay.
When it first happened, they came to me and they said that his constituents wanted to close it on suicide. And I was like, I already have a copy of the autopsy, and there's stab wounds in the body and the clothes, so, I go ahead and close it, then I could get an attorney. But until they closed the case, I wasn't able to get an attorney or anything like that.
And so technically it's not closed because it's still open. And have they ever found any, you said there were stab wounds in his body. Did they ever, find any suspects or persons of interest?
Yes, there's several persons of interest and leads that they followed, but it never was solid.
Mm-hmm.
Chelsea became a police officer later on, and then she became a private investigator. And so between me and her, we've done our own investigation on it, and then we've got Raven, who's done a tremendous job on it. But I never felt like the police were doing what they needed to do or question the right people. And those interrogations of those people, we can't find those. There's no record of them ever talking to the people that we feel are the most involved.
Yeah. So it's safe to say that Daniel's case inspired you to become a police officer, or was there other aspects that...
No, his case did. Seeing my mom go through everything that she did with the justice system, and seeing her pretty much being victimized, over being told that she's a mother in denial, that, all these things. It was very hurtful. And not to mention, when you lose somebody to such a brutal thing,
Right.
As kids, we were judged in school, people were afraid that something was going to happen to them if they came over, or, different things, and it hurt. And so I went to school with the direction to be a homicide investigator and to help others that, were in my shoes, so that they wouldn't be victimized again.
Mm-hmm.
And so as I was going through criminal justice and everything, I had a good mentor, and he told me, you've got to start at the bottom. And so that was being a police officer. And when I got into law enforcement, it wasn't that calling that I was looking for.
Right.
So I did later on go and get my private investigator license,
Mm-hmm.
so I could dig deeper into Daniel's case myself, and that turned up a lot of information that we didn't know about.
And how do you both feel about how the case was handled immediately after his body was found?
Totally disrespected as far as the family.
Because you said they wanted to wrap it up as a suicide.
He came into, I worked at a hardware store at the time, and I was going to college myself, and I was a single mom of 4 kids.
Right.
And the OSBI came into the hardware store and was asking me about the hair on the body, if Daniel's hair was long enough to put back in a ponytail. And then he asked me a few other questions, but he said, well, my constituents are the ones wanting to close it as suicide. And I'm like, he said, I know that it wasn't suicide, but we're not going to do that, but they're wanting to wrap it up. And I never felt like they were looking where they needed to look. They wanted to just pin it on somebody. And there's enough books wrote about murders in Ada that people have their own opinion about the justice system in Ada, Oklahoma, and how they dealt with murders back then.
Mm-hmm.
It's been 30 years. It's a lot different now.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I went into the justice system myself. As far as I changed my college degree and went into juvenile justice. And So I'm friends with a lot of the law enforcement now, and the DA and the judges, and it's changed. It's changed a lot.
How long after his body was found did they come to you saying that, or did that officer or investigator come to you saying that his coworkers wanted to wrap it up as a suicide? So how long in between his body being found and that conversation?
Close to a month.
So about a month.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And with you now seeing the other side of things and you also having seen the other side of things, did that open your eyes to, I guess, understanding how those cases are handled and determine if you felt one way or another about if it was handled properly or not?
Yes, it opened my eyes to even how the evidence was being stored.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, later on when we had DNA testing done, those kind of things, if it would have been handled properly, we could have preserved certain things and then maybe later had answers.
Yeah.
So, and then just the fact that compassion was not there,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's important.
Seemed very detached and cold. Yeah.
The May before it happened, I had just took homicide investigation courses. So I had a lot of questions,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like why did they put the day of death, the day they found the body? You know,
Yeah, if he was decomposed at that point.
You're supposed to like figure out when the body died, and you know.
Yeah, take the level of decomposition and kind of go backwards. Yeah.
Yeah, and so you have a timeline for like the day of death.
Yeah.
So you kind of know, but that wasn't done. It was just put the day that they found the body was the day of death.
Yeah.
And just taking those courses and learning, you know, how to investigate
Mm-hmm.
evidence and stuff like that.
What made you decide to take those courses?
Because Daniel had gotten into trouble with the
Mm-hmm.
gangs and stuff like that, and so I switched my major to juvenile justice, and I was
Mm-hmm.
going to be a counselor, but I wanted to start taking those kind of courses. It's just kind of, Daniel changed my course of life.
Being a mother, I know I talk to my mother and she's scared every second that I'm not directly with her. But being a mother, did you feel like this was something that was possible with the direction that Daniel was heading? And did you have that fear of, you know, something horrible happening to him? Or did you have that feeling of it can never be Daniel?
No, I had that fear all the time,
Mm-hmm.
what he was getting into. And the people he was messing with were like illegal aliens that were from Mexico that were around our town that he had started hanging out with gangs. He was selling drugs, would talk to me about it. And at one point I got really scared and I put him into a treatment center at Willowview up in Oklahoma City.
How old was he at that time?
15.
15.
And the next day, when he was supposed to go to the treatment center, he walked in and said he got jumped into the gangs the night before, and his face was swollen, and he'd gone to the city. And I put him in that placement, and he said that the gangs came to that placement and let him know that if he said anything or told anybody about what happened, that he would kill his family. And he was scared. And he said, Mom, I'm just going to get out of here, and I'm just going to have to slowly, I said, tell me who you're involved with. I can help you. And he's like, I can't, Mom, it's scary. And it's weird because I just retired 2.5 weeks ago. And the last day of my work, I had to go to that placement and pull up there. And that's been 30 years ago. It's kind of weird how God works.
Yeah. So with that being said, what do you think happened to Daniel specifically? Because it seems like he wasn't a part of this, you know, gang for very long before his death. At least, you know, you said he was jumped into it, so it doesn't seem like he was in there for very long. So what do you think actually happened? Do you think he was...
That gang is the one that murdered him. I don't... Because it goes so many different directions and the investigation was not done right.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many different directions that it could be.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard to know. I don't believe that my son's alive.
Mm-hmm.
I believe he died a brutal death from all the little things that people have said and told me.
Mm-hmm.
But there's so many stories out there, so many different scenarios out there.
Right.
I can't answer that question of what I believe will happen to him.
And do you agree? Or do you have your own theories?
I mean, I think Daniel was getting, he was smart,
Mm-hmm.
and he knew too much. And especially if they would have threatened, his family, he would have done what he needed to do to protect us.
Yeah.
So.
But do you believe that it was the gang he was a part of? Or do you think it was rival issues?
I think the town of Ada has a lot of little secrets.
Mm.
And I think Daniel knew too much. And there was a lot of people that didn't like Daniel.
Mm.
And that played a factor in his death.
Yeah. So, with that being said, do you believe the people or person responsible for Daniel's death is out there still?
Yes.
And I believe there's more than one.
You believe there's more than one? And let's say they were at this table right now or watching or listening. What would you say to them?
Just tell me what happened. That's all I want to know.
You just want to know.
I'm a Christian.
Mm-hmm.
I've long forgave.
Mm-hmm.
I go into the prison and I tell Daniel's story and talk to the inmates that have killed people.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell them that it's capable to forgive.
Mm-hmm.
So while it hurts and I want to know, I don't want all these questions in my head.
Mm-hmm.
I want to know what happened to him so I can have some kind of closure. Right now, there's no closure.
Right.
Because there's too many scenarios.
Mm-hmm.
I do feel like the people that know something are fighting demons every day because of this. And the only way that they can start to get closure in their hearts with it
Mm-hmm.
is to speak up.
Right. And that's common with, a lot of the families that we've spoken to is like, it's been however many years and they no longer they ran out of anger, right?
You do.
They ran out of fury and anger and resentment towards that person or that, those people responsible.
Yeah.
They just want to be told themselves because all they're left with is questions and the whys and the hows. And I mean, we've had people sitting across from me being like, I won't even tell police. Like, I won't say anything.
Right.
Like, I just need to know so I can sleep at night.
You're so right. Yeah.
And that's what's so hard because you're like, you don't even care about necessarily the justice part. You're like, I just want to know what happened to my child and my brother. And
We watched a lot of the people that we feel that are involved. We watched them go to jail, get strung out on drugs. They're all, like Chelsea said, they're dealing with their own demons.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, one of my favorite verses was, "Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord, I will repay." And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
It's yours, God. And I don't seek vengeance.
Mm-hmm.
I think it'd be really hard to go through a court hearing, a trial, and listen to all the evidence that I've already listened to over and over and over again.
And there are times we're not bitter, about the situation, but we've had to use this tragedy and push ourselves forward, which made me pursue, law enforcement, criminal justice, allowed my mom to continue to want to help juveniles, and she's done an amazing job with that. And she's allowed this tragedy of Daniel's death to, help other juveniles, and now she's taken it into the women's prisons and using it for her ministry there. And I've been able to work with juveniles as well and talk to them and use Daniel's story and allowed people, we've gotten close to other families that have lost loved ones. And we use each other to get through those moments, and it's been great. And then when somebody loses a loved one, we're there to answer questions that they might have and tell them it's not easy, and this is how we got through it. But everybody grieves differently. But it is comforting knowing that we can help others.
And sometimes whenever you're comforting another person but you haven't been through it, saying I understand can be, unrealistic, but you guys have taken this tragedy and used it to help others, and you can genuinely be like, I understand what you're going through, and it's not easy, and you're allowed to grieve, and it's okay, and we're going to help you carry that because we've been through what you've been through. So obviously you took Daniel's case and you turned a tragedy into something good with both of your careers. But before that, how did you cope? Because now, it's been 30 years. It was 30 years in July. How have you coped, mentally, emotionally with this loss?
When it first happened, I worked at a hardware store. And like I said, I was a single parent of 4 kids. So I left them with 3 that still needed their mama.
Right.
And I slowly quit going to work. Later and later and later. I wound up losing a job that I'd had for 15 years. Crawled in bed, got the kids off to school, and I just went into a deep depression. But my house almost got foreclosed on. And then one day my preacher came by and said, how are you doing? So anyway, he helped me get my house out of foreclosure. My sister came by with a big school bus and said, come here, you're going to drive this. So I climbed behind the seat of that bus and started driving the school bus. I was there with all my kids for all their outings. I drove them to school, got to be a part of their lives. Decided to go back to college again because I dropped out for a little bit. I started picking myself up and carrying on. And I knew that I had to be there for my kids. I couldn't just zone out. And so that was a dark time. But then I started trying to investigate the case myself, which was pretty hard. But I wound up going back to school and working full time, and God, I can say God.
And you said you were 8 at the time. Did you, for a while, just think, Daniel's missing, or were you told pretty early on, like, he's gone?
We were told right off the bat when the body was found that they believe it was Daniel.
How did you cope with that? I mean, you're 8. Like,
I think as a kid that age, there's a lot of stuff. You're not mature enough to realize what just happened. So, I am blessed to have a big family. We had a lot of support from everyone, our family, and then my siblings. Right before, was Daniel 12 when we found out about Haley and Matt? Yeah. So, I had always believed my dad was Daniel's dad, and then later on we found out that my dad had adopted him, and that he had 2 other siblings out there. And so we got to know Matt and Haley, and they came in our lives, and they were our siblings too, and so that helped me cope through that time, is knowing I lost a brother, but I also have another brother and sister in my life, and that was a blessing.
You rallied together.
Yeah, and we went through it together.
Right.
And then later on, when I got old enough to start, digging into what happened and was mature enough to understand it, it made me question things. And when I questioned things, I dug deeper to try to find the answer. And I grew during that time because I chose to pursue, I questioned God, and then I would read my Bible, and he would show me verses and help me get through those moments. I would have questions for the justice system. And I grew relationships with law enforcement, with people in investigation, in the investigation team, and they would help me understand those questions I had. And they were helpful when I pursued Daniel's case. So, again, when you take something bad like that, it's what weighs you down, or if you allow it to use you to push you forward. And thankful I was able to allow it to push me forward and to grow as an individual.
Right. And then
go back and clear it. I had Daniel when I was in high school.
Okay.
And then years later, I met Chelsea's father.
Oh, okay.
And when I married him, he adopted Daniel, so his last name was Furr too, and I had never told his biological father.
Oh, okay.
Later on, but so that's where Matt and Haley came in later on.
And then when Daniel's biological father found out, he brought, yeah. So how often do you speak to the agency on the case? Is it under OSBI now, officially?
It still is, yes.
Yeah. Okay. And how often do you speak to whoever's on the case currently?
We just met with him about a month ago, and he allowed us to look at some photographs of the body because I had saw one photograph.
So it was just a month ago that you first saw those photos?
No.
Oh, no, you saw them before.
Several years after the incident, I kept pushing it, why is everybody telling me this hair so long when Daniel's what, and just show me a picture of the body.
Yeah.
Because I never got to see anything. So he pulled 2 photographs out that were basically the same photograph and let me look at it. And I was like, okay, those are his clothes on there, and you couldn't recognize the body. It's black, the skin and everything, the face, you couldn't recognize nothing. But I said, just show me this long black flowing hair. Where did that come from? His hair wasn't that long.
Yeah.
And he goes, you're in denial. I don't know. I'm not. I'm calm. It's like, just show me where this long black flowing hair came from. And he said, snatched him up and said, you're in denial. He said, you still don't believe it was him? I said, now more than anything, because you won't explain that long black hair.
Right.
Those were his clothes on there. And I went in there with an open mind, and he just said, you're in denial. The OSBI at the time was very rude, very short with me. And the sheriff at the time was awful. He's no longer around, but it was just the way they treated the families.
Right.
It was wrong. And I'm not the only family they treated like that. But
so then more recently, you also got to look at photos again.
But that photo was not in the group of photos that we saw. And there was a stack of photos, along a tall stack. He wouldn't let me look at any more of those. But the ones we recently saw, that photo was not in there. And the body was positioned a little different. So it was hard to see the long black flowing hair in what we saw.
Right.
A month ago. His head was like in a crevice, kind of.
So the original photos were not a part of that, the photos you got to see recently? Did you ask?
Yeah, I asked.
Like, where are those?
That's all that they have. They just had a few select. He said that's all that he had. But it's gone through several different hands.
Yeah.
And back then it was an actual photo. This was on a computer.
Yeah.
And he only had so many on the computer. And we trust the guy that showed us the officer that showed us the photos a month ago. He was genuine. It bothered him because he said he had never showed the family pictures of the crime scene before. He said it was hard for him to let us see them.
Right. So with that being said, you seeing those photos and, questioning things and them snatching them away from you, did it put a pause on you thinking he was actually gone at that moment? Or were you still settled that he was gone, you just weren't sure if that was him?
At that point, I thought he could be somewhere. Because he told me, I could disappear, Mom, and you'd never find me.
Mm.
And I was like, no, I'd find you. One way or another, I would find you. But he said, no, you wouldn't. So that always was in my mind years ago when I saw that photo, that maybe he could be somewhere. But his clothes were on it, so then I thought he'd have to be involved. So that was another set of emotions. You know,
Yeah.
I didn't know whether to grieve him, be mad at him, or what.
Yeah. And I feel like that's
a roller coaster.
Yeah, that's a natural roller coaster of emotions you're going to go through.
But there were several things pointing it away from Daniel, the autopsy. So which made us doubt that the body they found was Daniel's.
Mm-hmm.
And we questioned it for many years.
Mm-hmm. So at what point did you guys, if you were questioning it for so long, at what point did you guys decide it was him? You know, we gotta stop questioning this part and start grieving.
The stories, because you hear how he died, and then several different. It's hard to explain.
Mm-hmm.
There was a point where the sheriff's office moved across the street, and I was working for OJA at the time. And while they were clearing stuff out, did you want to say something?
Well, back in 2006, we did a news story to bring, awareness to Daniel's case and hopefully to get people talking. And when we did that news story that evening, the ME's office reached out and said, because our goal at that point was to exhume the body and get a DNA test done. Because back in 95, DNA testing
yeah, they weren't doing that. Yeah.
But at this point, it had grown quite a bit. And so we wanted to exhume the body, get the DNA test done on the body to know for sure, to have closure. And so when we did the news story, like I said, the ME's office reached out to the news and said, don't exhume the body. We have a tissue sample of Daniel's DNA, which we never knew about. So at that point, my mom hired an attorney. We did the legal paperwork. She set up a lab down in San Antonio to get the DNA testing done. She sent her DNA down there. Several months went by, and they called and they said, we're just checking to see where the DNA was. They never sent it. And so when we asked about it, they said, well, the tissue sample that we have is too badly decomposed. And so they wouldn't send it, even though we had a court order to send it. So 6 months later, they're remodeling the courthouse, and down below in the basement, in a closet, is this random envelope, and it has Daniel's name on it with OSBI tape. And the undersheriff at the time, he called my mom right away, and he said, Gale, I have a package. I don't want to open it until you're here. And so we waited till she got up there.
So it was just a vanilla envelope that had Daniel's name on it, and it had OSBI tape on it. He cut that. There were several different envelopes inside of it. There was a list of what was in there, and there were some blood samples. And we got the DA to release one of those blood samples to me, and we sent it down to the lab where my DNA was, and it came back that it matched, that it was Daniel. So at that point, I put a headstone on his grave. I had gone that long without putting a headstone on there because I didn't know. So I had a little closure there, but it's still odd how it appeared.
Yeah.
And it did. Because to begin with, like, the body was supposed to be 5'4", 95 pounds. Daniel was 5'10", 140 pounds, 135 pounds. There was just a lot of discrepancies that made me question.
Right.
The casket was there, and I wanted to make sure that they didn't open it up in front of the other kids, and it was glued shut right off the bat. There was just a lot of
So you never saw the body in person?
No. Never was able to, never asked to.
So for people watching and listening who are hearing about Daniel's murder for the first time, maybe they've never heard of his case or his name, what would you tell them about this case or about Daniel that maybe we haven't went over today?
That's a tough question.
Because I like to say we have a lot of, we call them couch detectives,
Yeah.
you know, where they're sitting at home or they're watching this, or they're in their car and they're listening, and you never know who's listening, who might know just something we need. So what would you tell them?
As a somebody that's been impacted by somebody that's murdered, and if I know there was this one family that lost a loved one several years ago, and it's still a cold case as well. If you ever go through that, start taking notes now. Start writing everything down that you can think of, because that's what helped me as I was investigating this. The little notes that my mom wrote down and the little things that she kept, and it helped me build a timeline. So if you're having to do this on your own, every little thing, if you think it's a phone call that might not be important, write it down, because in the long run it might help you solve that case.
Right. Well, if you know anything about Daniel's case, please contact the OSBI at 800-522-8017, or you can email tips@osbi.gov.ok.gov. I will list both of those in the description or on the screen. Or you can visit, don't you guys have a Facebook page, Justice for Daniel Furr?
Yes.
You can also visit that, learn more about the case, look at pictures.
We do have a book out.
Yes, and we have a Raven Rollins book. And I will also put a description for that. She was here not too long ago, and
Two of them.
yes, and she's fantastic, and you can learn more about Daniel's case in that book as well, so I will put it in the description. Thank you guys so much for joining me.